Now at 11, 24 million bucks found stashed in an attic.
There's a movie on Netflix right now called The Rip, which they're saying is inspired, at least partially, by events about 10 years ago in Miami.
Rick, investigators say it all unfolded inside this house here behind me, where investigators say they recovered bucketfuls of cash from a hidden room in the house as part of a major marijuana bust.
It was $24 million. The guy had it. Well, him and his sister, Luis Hernandez Gonzalez, had $24 million of them.
And our news partners at the Miami Herald report this is the largest cash seizure in the history of the Miami-Dade Police Department.
$1 million in each of 24 different Home Depot buckets hidden in his house.
And right now at 6, a big bust for Miami-Dade police who raided a Southwest Miami-Dade home and literally came across buckets full of cash. The cash totaled $24 million and was all hidden in the walls of this Miami Lakes home. Can you believe that?
No, can't imagine.
Hundreds of millions a month were flowing out of South Florida during the peak of the yayo boom in the 80s. So it goes to show you how little of the money was getting seized or how much was making it to actually be turned in.
Imagine all this money packed in vacuum-sealed bags and stuffed in buckets behind the walls of a Miami Lakes home. That's what Miami-Dade police say Luis Gonzalez Hernandez, an accused marijuana trafficker, did. He faces numerous charges. His sister Salma Hernandez also got arrested in the case.
Who were these people? Were they holding money for some quote-unquote cartel? No, they owned a hydroponics store.
According to investigators, Luis Gonzalez Hernandez owns this business, the Blossoms Experience in Northwest Miami-Dade. It's a business that sells indoor garden supplies.
And anytime I remember going into a hydroponics store years ago, it always felt like there was always an undercover cop there. But anyway, so this guy made so much money. There was no allegations that he sold any tree or any other narcotics himself. It was that his business was so successful supplying gardening supplies around the country, I guess, that he made all this money. And because so many of the people that, he was supplying gardening supplies to were probably doing shady stuff, so they were paying in cash. So what really is this guy's crime?
Miami-Dade police write in the arrest report that they have wiretapped phone calls showing Gonzalez Hernandez assisted a person in Tennessee by selling the person equipment for an indoor marijuana drug lab and gave the person expert advice in growing pot. Investigators snapped these pictures as they searched the home of Gonzalez Hernandez, showing not only the money in sealed bags, but also an automatic weapon. Investigators say they also recovered 4 different types of steroids in the home and that a police canine alerted on the scent of drugs on some of that money. At Gonzalez Hernandez's business, the arrest report shows they recovered marijuana seeds, and $180,000 in cash. The pair appeared in court Wednesday. Salma Hernandez received a bond of $12,500. Luis Gonzalez Hernandez received a bond of $4 million.
This is an unreasonable bond under these circumstances. We think that this is a very, very tenuous case.
It really doesn't surprise me.
People who live nearby, like this woman, Mary, who declined to give her last name, drove by to see the large home on Wednesday night. The thought of all that money hidden behind some wallboards captivated their interest.
Goes to show like they really want the money more than anything. Because remember, when a law enforcement agency seizes money, it goes to funding for their department. It could go to overtime. Some of it could go into a pool of overtime pay. So there's a very direct correlation between money getting seized and cash in the pockets of law enforcement without even anything shady going on, not to mention all the shady stuff that goes on. So the war on drugs is really, we already know it's a joke. But so anyway, so this guy, Hernandez, his hydroponic store is so successful that he has accumulated $24 million in cash. Now, cash is still legal. This is back in 2016. Cash, you could still legally use cash. It almost feels like you're committing a crime when you use cash. But they had to get him. They got him on a, I think after they went in his house and took the money. So mind you, this guy probably was only gonna be, not filing a tax return is a misdemeanor. Lying on your tax return is where you can get felonious. So if he just wasn't reporting it, he was probably only going to be subject to seizure and misdemeanors. But after the, I think it was after the raid or during the investigation, not sure. It was unclear. Different newspaper articles said different things. They had him on a wiretap with some people in Tennessee, where he simply advised them on some growing techniques. So now the $300,000 those particular people sent him, now you can link that to illegal narcotics proceeds, and then the fact that he bought some small amount of money orders or accepted some money orders, U.S. Postal Service money orders. That was structuring a financial transaction. Boy, they can sure find a law for anything. So if you get some cash, you do anything at all with it. You buy any kind of money orders and to send it somewhere else so it's not so bulky, and then they bust it back into cash. You've now laundered money. So about $300,000 could be linked to this Tennessee case. He had $24 million, and they seized it all. And in the end, this guy was able to make a plea agreement where he got 65 months in federal prison, which is kind of a lot. It's a little over 5 years, 5 years and 5 months. They took $18 million, but he got to keep $4 million and his house and his business. They didn't seize his stuff. So they could never, this really is an example of a guy, he probably, well, I mean, I guess they proved he gave advice over the phone on how to grow the reefers to the people in Tennessee. That was really where he messed up at. Because other than that, it sounds like he would have had a misdemeanor tax, failure to file income tax, and then they just would have made a, gave him an assessment, a 39% assessment or something like that. And he probably would have kept more than half of his money. But because those few little errant phone calls and those few money orders he dabbled with, they seized $18 million. He got to keep $4 million of it. But you would think so never, when you see stuff on the news, don't assume you know what it is. You think this guy's holding money for the CARTEL, or he's, secret Pablo Escobar or something. The guy just had a hydroponic store. Never accused, no evidence of him trafficking in the reefers. And he simply gave some growing tips over the phone and accepted $300,000 from those people in Tennessee. And that cost him $18 million. So cash is legal to use, but they're going to want to take it from you. So always think carefully about every single move. The feds only got to get you doing one thing wrong one time. You got to bat 1,000. So, like I always say, if you're poor and ain't got no money and you need to make a few $100,000, well, with inflation, let's say you need to make $500,000 to get your life started. Okay, once you start getting into the millions, or if you're going to make it a lifestyle of making money and blowing it fast, they're going to get you. They're going to figure out a way. This guy wasn't even selling dope. He had a legal hydroponic store that accepted cash. And instead of just hitting them with the 40% levy for unpaid taxes, they figured out a way to take $18 million of it, and I'm sure some of that ended up in overtime pay for local police out profit. And that's an American dope story.